The battleground story for tonight, our powerful interests in this country trying to cover up the full extent of the damage from the Gulf oil spill. BP's putting the victims over a barrel, saying they can only be compensated from the escrow fund if they sign away their rights to sue, not just BP, but any other potential defendant. Meanwhile, in a desperate attempt to get the story off the front page, the administration way overstated the amount of oil that's been removed. The first week of August, the White House was pushing a report that said 75% of the oil was gone. How's that possible? But at an Energy Committee hearing yesterday, a top NOAA scientist gave the exact opposite figure.
How much oil was actually discharged into the Gulf?
The best estimate to date would be 4.1 million barrels, plus or minus 10%.
Out of the 4.1 million barrels discharged, how many barrels are still in the Gulf or on its shores in some form?
Probably about 3/4.
So it's 75% that's not gone, not 75% that is gone. That would seem to be a pretty important difference. This testimony coincides with the discovery of a massive oil plume buried deep underwater, near where the deep water rig exploded in the first place. It's 22 miles long and proof that the dispersed oil didn't just magically disappear or dissolve into the water, as we were led to believe it would. To which I say, of course, it didn't magically disappear. It's an absurd argument in the first place. For more, let me bring in environmental lawyer Mike Papantonio. His firm is leading the class action lawsuits against BP. All right, Mike.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. It's good to have you here. So first question is, who is saying, hey, you know what, you can't sue anybody else if you agree to this? Is it BP or is it the government?
Well, no, it's the way the document is put together. And the problem is the way it's put together, it makes it almost impossible for all practical purposes for anybody to sign off on it. I mean, that is the problem. You can't sign off on something when you know that down the road you have the right, before you go into that agreement, to sue all the defendants. And all the defendants are responsible for what happened here. So,
but is the administration signing off on that? Are they on board for that?
The administration, Cenk, wants this to go away. They want it off the front page. They're willing to do anything with it. Whatever Feinberg can do to make this move from the front page, they seem to be willing to go for. As a matter of fact, when they had Carol Browner show up in front of Congress and make the statement that, hey, 3/4 of this is gone, they knew it wasn't gone. Our scientists told them it wasn't gone. They knew they didn't have the documentation. They knew that the science was woefully incomplete. They knew that, but they were so anxious to make this whole thing go away that they were willing to lie to the American public. Think about this, Cenk. Here's where it all ties in. You ask yourself, why would they do that? They did it because they want to add credibility to the idea that this $20 billion is going to be enough to pay for everybody. We know that's not true. We know it's about an $80 billion deal. But if they can make this go away and say all the oil's gone, the 22 miles that you talked about of oil that is 22 miles long, it's 1 mile across, it's 600 feet deep. That's just one of the plumes. And that's another point. That's just one of the plumes we're talking about here. But if the government, if the White House can say, hey, listen, it's not as bad as you thought it was, then all of a sudden it moves away from the front page.
So, you know, a lot of people would say, though, a lot of administrations, including this one, are too much in bed with corporate America. Now, is that part of this thing here where they're basically covering for a corporation, and it's not even America, it's a multinational corporation, obviously, in this case, or is it just that they think, hey, you know what, I gotta get this, I'm getting blamed for it just as much as BP is, so that's why I'm going to help them cover up how much oil is there?
It's two parts, Cenk, but I've heard you say this before on your show. And when I've heard you talk about it, you've hit it right on the head, and it is this. You have a government that would allow, if you dress a criminal up in a three-piece suit and you say that criminal has robbed a bank, it's probably okay with this administration. They look at it differently. They look at the crime standard differently for corporate America. Look at AIG. Look at Goldman Sachs. How in the world did they they say that the thugs that pulled that kind of travesty on American people, that they weren't going to be prosecuted, but nobody's been prosecuted. That's the same mentality you see here, Cenk. It's exactly the same mentality. It's BP. They dress up in three-piece suits. They wear Armani suits. Therefore, we're going to let them go. It is a blinder that we have put on in the American public about the way we regard corporate America. And you know what? This White House, by way of Eric Holder, shows that side too much. I'm hoping they're going to overcome it by this investigation they have going on. I'm hoping they're going to redeem themselves by going after the criminals that killed 11 people and destroyed an ecosystem. And if you're thinking for a second that this is over, it has just started. You have an ecosystem that is hugely at risk. You have marine life that's going to be affected for the next decade. I have the best scientists in the world working with me on this case, and they tell me, they almost laughed when they heard that last report.
All right, Mike, real quick. So can the people down there trust Ken Feinberg to pay out their claims, or you think he's not going to do that?
I think.
How do you feel about
Cenk,
that?
I think what's going to happen is this. Feinberg's going to come out and he's going to pay all the low-end claims, what I call the low-hanging fruit, the ones that are crystal clear. And then he's going to stop when it comes to a restaurant that was maybe 700 yards away from the beach, and they're out of business because they've lost their beach business. He's going to make the argument that proximity does not permit him to make that payment, and that's where the fight's going to take place. But he wants to look like a hero. He wants to come out and say, look, I solved 80% of the problem, but it's that 20% where the billions and billions of dollars are really going to be wrapped up here. And that's where the fight's going to take place.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Always on fire. We appreciate it.